So, in our last video, we covered factoring quadratics where a is equal to 1. Let's take a look at what happens when a is not equal to 1. It's a little bit longer of a process, but it's very, very similar. Let's start with our first example. We have 2x squared plus 3x minus 9. Here's the difference. We can't factor a common factor out of any of these. The 2, 3, and 9 do not all have a common factor other than 1, but factoring out a 1 doesn't really help us. So we are going to multiply 2 times negative 9. That's the first thing we're going to do, is we're going to have a times c. That's the first thing we do. That's going to equal negative 18. And we need two numbers that multiply to make negative 18 and add together to make 3. One of them is going to be negative because multiplying two numbers together, if one of them's a negative, then you get a negative number. So one of them's a negative, one of them's a positive. What do we have? We could do 3 and 6. Negative 3 and positive 6. Added together, we'll make a positive 3. Multiplied together, we'll make negative 18. Now that we have our two key numbers, we can't just plug them into the factors like we did where our a value was equal to 1. Instead, we have to split our b value into positive 6x and negative 3x. Now, we will do what's called factoring by grouping. I'm going to put parentheses around these two. I'm going to put parentheses around these two. I want to factor out the greatest common factor from both of these terms, which is going to be 2x. What will that look like? This will become an x. 2x squared divided by 2x is x, and 6x divided by 2x is 3. What is the greatest thing I can factor out of this would be negative 3. So I'm going to have negative 3. Negative 3x divided by 3 is going to be x. Negative 9 divided by 3 will be positive 3. Once we get here, the thing to look for is, are the things inside the parentheses the same? If they are, then congratulations, you have factored correctly. And what we're going to do is that will be our first factor. X plus 3. The second factor is the combination of the things we factored out. So we have 2x and minus 3, or a negative 3, and that becomes our other factor. So the process, let's run through it one more time, is you're going to multiply a times c. 2 times negative 9 gives us negative 18. And we need two numbers that multiply to make negative 18, but add together to make a positive 3. We got negative 3 and positive 6. We then took those and split the 3x in the middle into positive 6, that's where this positive 6 went, and negative 3x, that's where this negative 3 went. Then we grouped into groups of 2, factored out greatest common factors out of each of the groups. What's left inside the parentheses becomes our first factor, and what is outside the parentheses becomes our second one. And that's the process we're going to follow for all the rest of the examples. Example 2. We have 2x squared plus 11x plus 5. So just like the previous one, the first thing we're going to do is multiply a times c, and we're going to get 10. So we need a number that multiplies to 10 and two numbers that multiply to 10 and add together to make 11. That's our b term. Two numbers that multiply to 10, add to make 11. What about 1 and 10? That works. So we're going to split this 11x term into x and 10x. This is still added, and 2x squared over here. Next, we're going to group these into sets of 2 and factor out the greatest common factor out of each of them. The greatest common factor here is x. 2x squared divided by x is 2x, and x divided by x is 1. The greatest common factor here is 5, a positive 5. 10x divided by 5 is 2x, and 5 divided by 5 is 1. What is inside the parentheses becomes our first factor, 2x plus 1. And what is outside the parentheses becomes our second factor, our x, and our positive 5. And there we go. That is the factored form of this quadratic. All right, let's take a look at our next example. We have 9x squared plus 66x plus 21. First thing that I notice is all three of our terms have 3 as a common factor. So let's factor out our 3. 9x squared divided by 3 is 3x squared. 66x divided by 3 is 22x. And 21 divided by 3 is 7. Now, let's see if this quadratic is factorable. 3 times 7 is 21. And we need two numbers that will multiply to 21, add to make 22. In this case, very straightforward. We have 21 and 1. They multiply to make 21, they add to make 22. Let's split these up. We have, let's put the 1x over here, and we'll put the 21x over here. Plus 7, 3x squared, and now we put our parentheses in and factor by grouping. So 3x squared plus x. X is the greatest common factor there. We'll be left with 3x plus 1. And then here, greatest common factor is a positive 3. We'll be left with... Oh, I'm sorry. No. Greatest common factor is a 7. We'll be left with 3x plus 1. Okay, so the stuff inside the parentheses becomes our first factor, 3x plus 1, and the stuff inside or outside the parentheses, x plus 7, becomes our other factor. And this is the fully factored form of this. Oh, no, it's not, because we factored out a 3 at the beginning. Almost forgot. We factored out a 3 at the beginning, so we need to include that in our answer. So this is the fully factored form of this quadratic. Let's take a look at our next example. 16x squared plus 60x minus 100. Okay. Well, 4 is a common factor of each of these terms, so let's factor that out. 16x squared divided by 4 is 4x squared. 60x divided by 4 is 15. Took me a second. And then 100 divided by 4 is 25. Let's see if this quadratic here is factorable. 4 times negative 25 is negative 100. So we need something that multiplies to negative 100, adds together to make 15. Well, we can work with positive 20 and negative 5. Those will add together to make 15, and they multiply together to make negative 100. We'll split this 15x into two different terms that use our key numbers. So this will be 20x, and this will be 5x. Drop the other numbers down. Plus sign there. And now we will put in our parentheses and factor by grouping. Now, quick note, notice that the negative sign is inside the parentheses whenever I made this group. That is because this term is a negative 5x. We're not having this group minus 5x minus 25. It's this group, and this whole thing has to include that negative. So, first factor, we can take out 4x. Because we can take a 4 from both of the constants, we can take an x from both of the variables. And we'll be left with x plus 5. And our second one, we can factor out a negative 5. And we will be left with x plus 5. The stuff inside the parentheses becomes our first factor, and the stuff outside the parentheses becomes our second factor. And unlike the last example, I'm not going to forget to bring down the 4 that we factored out at the beginning to make our final factorization 4 times x plus 5 times 4x minus 5. Okay, so that's it for today. If you found this video to be helpful, consider liking and subscribing. And if you have a topic you want me to cover in the future, leave it down in the comments below. As always, have a fantastic day.